This is the S Word with Noble comment.
And it's a hello from me.
And hello from me. This is the S Word with Mick and Noble, coming to you live from Pratt Institute.
Here in glorious Clinton Hill.
Yeah, it's wonderful tonight. It's a full-on 83 degrees high today.
And it's about 810 in the room here.
Feels like it. Yeah, we're
great.
next to the engineering room, so we get all the fresh boiler.
Feels like the middle of August in here.
It's wonderful. It's great.
So, anything interesting from the past week?
Boy, interesting the past week. Just a lot of back and forth, bouncing around, getting things done. I went to go get my robes for the graduation commencement ceremony for Pratt students this next month.
They have a robe big enough for you?
Yes, they did. Well, not for my ego, but just for me.
I'm surprised. And what's that for? You're graduate.
Commencement.
No,
I go sit up on stage.
You're a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. I get to sit up there and chuckle.
So you have to have a suit as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
I get a free breakfast out of it, and I get to go sit up on stage at Radio City Music Hall. It's the one time I get to be there on stage.
What did we do Saturday morning?
We went to McCarren Park.
At what time?
At 8:30 in the morning.
And who was late?
You were?
No, I wasn't. I was sitting there.
Neither of us were late.
You know why I was so
It
early?
was early.
Right?
We were supposed to be there at 8:30.
I got the. Have you ever been on the G train and the G train is just waiting for you?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That train. Anyway, Saturday morning. I think I was there in 10 minutes.
Why did you think I was late?
Where were you coming? Oh, you were coming from the house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we talked to people on the street, right? And this is what they said. You ready?
Ready? Here we go.
People out on the street.
So, as the bell tolls, what's the question of the week this week?
The question is, in a year from now, where do you see yourself? Where do you see the nation? And where do you see the planet?
Good stuff.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think so. It's the end of round one, though.
You want to do it right here, right now?
Yeah, it's just basic
You
stuff.
want to walk and talk? Or?
Sure.
Depends. I mean, I think I'll do well. I think I'll be really, really well. I don't know about everybody else or everything else. Don't really have a lot of hope for a collective, but individually, myself and a few other individuals, I think there's room for a lot of good. Yeah.
And where do you see the nation?
This country?
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll probably still exist, but it'll probably be a lot different. I think it'll surprise people how different. What day is it today?
Saturday.
But the date.
Oh, it's
27th.
The 27th of April. I think the 27th of April next year, people will be surprised just how different it is.
And in your opinion, how do you think that will be different? What do you think? What are you alluding to?
I can't imagine. I do not know. I do not know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a result of the coming election, or is it just?
We've got a lot of things going on. I mean, we just had cosmically, astrologically, socioeconomically, there's a lot of things shifting, not just the tectonic plates. Yeah.
Right. So we had the earthquake, we had floods, we had the eclipse.
You know what I mean? It's not even a counterculture. It's not even an exotic idea to suppose that something's happening. And you can expect something different. Could be really good for a lot of people. Yeah.
Excellent.
What did they say? Yeah. The beginning is nigh.
Oh my gosh. That's binary.
I don't want you to split it
Oh,
off.
yeah, thanks. No, that's a binary question because the November tells us everything.
Okay.
I mean, so we could either continue on this path of trying to clean things up and make things more positive, or we could devolve into, let's call it anarchy. So,
What about yourself?
Myself? So I'm very fortunate for myself and for my family that I've had good success in life, and so we're setting ourselves up to be able to navigate that.
Okay.
So
Cool. And the planet?
And the planet, the planet's going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
How we do on the planet, I mean, I'm an engineer, right, from feedback systems and all this kind of stuff. The planet is going to do absolutely fine.
Yeah.
The people on the planet, on the other hand, are going to have a tough time, especially if you live near the water.
Oh, this is a great question. Maybe you can answer because you live here. I live in Italy, so I can tell you where I see my nation in the future.
That sounds great too. That's
good.
wonderful.
That's fine.
Yeah, let's go.
No, in Europe we still have. We are struggling with all the problems coming from the war in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So we are struggling with that issue. This is the greatest issue at stake today, because what we think is basically that fighting over there. I mean, Ukraine is fighting for all of us, for democracy in Europe. So we are struggling for supporting them. We must understand until at what point, because giving them arms means that we are taking out arms from our. Mm-hmm. I'm in the army. Yeah. I'm in the military, so I really understand the problems, because the Italian industry of defense is not the European industry of defense is not capable yet of producing a great amount of armaments. So to balance the necessity for giving them armaments and to keep arms for us. So we are struggling. In the future, the future is blurred for us in Europe, but it's still great.
Whereabouts in Italy?
Huh?
Whereabouts in Italy? What town? Where are you from in Italy?
Oh, I'm from. I live in Rome, actually. I'm from the south, in a small city which is called Brindisi. And at the moment, I live in Paris because I am a student at the military university in France. So.
Wow, fantastic.
And my daughter lives here.
Yeah, I live here. I arrived on November,
wow.
And I will be here until May 2025. So in 1 year I will be here.
What are you studying?
No, I work.
What do you work as?
I work in a marketing and communication agency.
Well, I see myself still in Brooklyn, for better or for worse. The nation... It's hard to say. It's not looking awesome. There's just, with everything going on in the world, with everything going on in Gaza right now, and kind of the way that that's being treated, the fact that nothing really seems to have changed in any significant way for the planet is pretty dismal.
How does the election, does it worry you? Is it just more the same, doesn't matter what happens? Is it?
Yeah, I mean... It does matter what happens. I think Trump showed pretty decisively that he can really fuck things up when he wants to. I think I haven't been thinking about it that much, in that there's very little that I myself feel like I can do about it beyond like my personal vote. So it worries me in the abstract, but it doesn't worry me in the day-to-day, because, worrying about something that I can't change is somewhat fruitless.
Myself, I think within a year, not radical change is going to happen. The country in a year, I hate to be optimistic and hopeful, but I'm sure we're going to be moving forward. Hate doesn't always win. And the planet, I don't know, honey. We've kind of messed that up. Yeah. I think it might be irreversible. I'm not sure. I'm not a scientist or environmentalist, but I don't think anybody really pays much attention to the planet except for the activists.
I see myself in a year in a better place than now. Just kind of moving forward, not just from a corporate standpoint or from a professional standpoint, just as a human being. The nation, if it doesn't change in a year, it's going to be in a bad place. We're all kind of going through a bad time right now, and it needs to change. And I think we can all feel that. We can't necessarily articulate it, but we need some healing for sure.
And where do you see the planet in a year?
That's a difficult question. You'd have to talk to scientists about that one. We hear global warming, we hear climate change, we hear all this stuff. You'd have to talk to the professionals about that one. I hope it's in a better place than it is right now, though.
Myself in a year, hopefully not hating my job and having a better sense of self. The nation in a year, I don't see it in a great place, probably in a Donald Trump presidency, if I'm being honest. And what was the last one?
Where do you see the planet?
The planet in a year. I think probably like not in like that much of like a radically different state as it is now, in the sense that like we are gradually moving towards the same state of kind of global warming that we are, but we will probably have a couple more pretty large natural disasters in terms of like some more fires, things like that people will continue to see as just the norm, and they won't see it as like, you know, another large change, but we're moving towards that state very rapidly, but it will feel gradual. Does that make sense? What I'm saying makes sense, you know? We won't see it as such because we can't zoom out in a year's time.
So do you think it is actually something that is caused by global warming, or do you think it's just something that
No, very much I think it's caused by global warming, 1,000%, just to be clear. I just think we as people, when you look at it at a time frame of a year, I think that a lot of people have a hard time understanding it at that scale, and so people will say, that's so terrible, that's so sad, that's what happens. But when you look at it at a year's time frame, I think it's very hard for the broader culture and population to understand it as we're barreling very rapidly towards a destination that we can't stop, and that we're very much too far already on the path. So what I mean is just when the question is, you know, where will we be in a year? That's such a short time frame for me to say, you know, something dramatically, like a seismic shift will happen where things will be so different or people will feel so different. I think it will just be more of that kind of gradual shift that probably won't change people's minds.
So we're on a slippery slope.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
We see ourselves, pretty much locked in our apartment in a year. She's pregnant. She's about to pop in like 2 weeks.
Oh, congratulations.
So that's where we'll be in a year. What was the other one?
Where do you see the nation in a year?
Oh.
Tougher question.
No idea.
I don't know. I think I want to say unstable, which is maybe not very optimistic, but hopefully moving in a more positive direction.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Environment, I'm hoping that people are going to start taking the environment more seriously, and there will be more sustainability programs in place across the nation and mandatory programs to take the safety of our Earth more seriously.
Myself, I hope a better year.
Uh-huh.
The nation down the drain.
Okay.
What was the third question?
The planet.
Where do you see the planet in a year?
Up to God.
In a year from now, living...
my baby's second birthday.
Planning our baby's second birthday party.
Wonderful.
Living here in Williamsburg.
Uh-huh.
And actually maybe spending some time in Barcelona. Like spending some extended time, maybe 3 months there. If we can find an apartment exchange to spend his second birthday there.
Where do you see the nation in a year?
The nation in a year. That's extreme.
I mean, I'm optimistic.
I don't know if I have an answer for that.
Divided in a year, more so than today.
Yeah.
And we have to see the outcome of the elections too, you know.
Yeah.
See what's happened there, what's gonna happen there, you know. Because again, we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Where is this going? It's very uncertain. The uncertainty is something that's been happening since the pandemic, and that hasn't been, you know, going anywhere.
And where do you see the planet in a year?
Hopefully in a better place. You know.
I don't know if better, the same as today. I think I don't know if a year makes a difference in the planet
we get another
this year.
Pandemic, and then the planet will rest a little more.
What do you think of that?
That was I was there, so but it was good. It was interesting, the dichotomy of people and what the responses were, because obviously, you know, we saw these people as we were talking to them, and you started to point it out to me. There was definitely a pattern of people who were responding and giving kind of, you know, interesting well thought out answers, and then people who weren't, and then people who were just like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you. And I thought that was this. It was just, I don't know. It was a good Q&A session this week.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and For Whom the Bell Was Tolled.
Oh my goodness!
The beginning of that.
That's where you went with that.
So we're going to move on to this week's interview, which is the second part of the interview with Rami Dinnawi, who's the Environmental Justice Campaign and Policy Manager at El Puente HQ in East Williamsburg. He's going to talk further about the BQE Park, which is going to be over the BQE, apparently, is in the architectural stage. He's going to talk about federal monies for environmental projects, how they get distributed, and how the community is included in those distributions. And here we go. He's a great guy. Part 2.
Excellent.
The interview.
We just got to do it.
Of the week.
Just so I kind of have a visual, it's actually a park over the
Yes.
bakery?
There's already metal bridges, roads at 3 points. And so what this would do is you would structurally create a slab that is reinforced from the bottom as well and cover the entirety of it through reinforcement beams in the bottom, and then also relying on those existing bridge roads that are already on top of the trench that connect certain roads. There's 3 of them. And then what ends up happening is that you filter the air that's coming. So you transform the expressway from an expressway into a tunnel, basically.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we had a firm do the plan for us. At the time, it was D-Land Studios. Now it has been acquired by Sasaki. But basically, the plan would put that deck structurally. The engineering is gone through and kind of mapped out. And then on top of that cap, you would then start to kind of like build the infrastructure of the park. So it is possible, and there's multiple projects like that.
It'll be almost like a kind of High Line.
Sort of.
In a way.
Sort of,
Yeah.
yes. The High Line relied on the existing railway, but this is basically we're creating land.
Right.
We're creating land on top of, like, from thin air, basically. Yeah. But it would work like that, just minus the negative elements of the High Line, which is kind of like the gentrification, the privatization of that space, etc. Right. It's more shifting towards a publicly owned
I followed that a little bit, and it kind of got hijacked, didn't it?
It did. It did, and it actually changed.
The same guys that are kind of building. Yeah.
And it changed the whole meatpacking industry. That area was completely changed. So kind of like a similar transformation of existing infrastructure. And actually, not to go very far in terms of a similar proposal, we've been advocating for this for a very long time, but then the state saw fit to implement a capping project in Buffalo, New York, to cover the expressway there. So they're doing that already. They got the funding from the federal government, and they're gonna be doing that in Buffalo. And what we're saying is these federal grants explicitly name Robert Moses, and they're called Reconnecting Communities grants, and they talk about the legacy of racist infrastructure, naming Robert Moses. The state has yet to, in goodwill, engage with us on realizing this particular plan. But we are moving headway in terms of achieving that. But it is not too far-fetched. There's multiple plans of actually capping and decking across the world, and even in the United States, successfully doing that. And ensure, it's a transformation of an existing infrastructure. So those things are underway and are happening, and it is not too much. Now, certain things have changed in the plan that are no longer feasible, primarily housing elements, that the plots existed and no longer exist. the plots of land surrounding the highway. The plan is still solid and needs a bit of updating to kind of figure tiny elements of it. And that's why we pushed the city Department of Transportation along with the State Department of Transportation to apply for a federal grant called the Reconnecting Neighborhoods Grant, the RCN. This grant has two phases. The first is a planning grant. The second is a capital construction grant. We pushed the city to apply with the state, and they did, and they got the grant. Part of this Reconnecting Neighborhoods grant, planning on capping the south side of Williamsburg in quote-unquote North Brooklyn and North BQE, capping that and trying to figure out how to implement it again. So, there are a lot of examples, and it can work, and it has been done before. What has always been our kind of, the sticks in the wheel have always been political will and price tag. Today, the money exists through the federal government to the extent of 80% funding for a project like this. And sometimes it's 100% because we are labeled by the federal government as a disadvantaged community and as an environmental justice community. So if you fit those criteria, the federal government would pay for the entire project. So those exist. All you need to do is kind of get the political willpower of the decision makers. All of our elected representatives, from federal Congress and Senate to state assembly and Senate to city council members, are all in supportive of this. You just need the administrations and agencies to follow through with the plan. So that is State Department of Transportation, City Department of Transportation, the governor and the mayor. It is just a decision on where to prioritize your funding. Right now we're in budget season, so to speak, in New York State and in New York City. But part of our budget proposal with the largest climate justice coalition in the state is funding a project like BQ Green. And as well with the city, we are engaged in rigorous conversations on how to achieve that. The scenario that we have today is that, this talks about kind of the particularities of government. Since this is an expressway, the jurisdiction falls under the state of New York, not the city of New York, even though the municipality that's actually working on it would be the city of New York, but this is under the jurisdiction of State Department of Transportation. And so the work lies in ensuring that the state invests in this so that then the city falls in line, because there we see some movement there, but the state has to engage as well. They are the municipal partners of a grant like this, for example.
Environmental equity is not a new idea, but it seems like it's starting to gain a foothold. How is it changing the conversations both in activist circles and in government?
And activists in the past used to call for equity doesn't quite serve it because there's an injustice that has happened, and it's an active undertaking rather than a passive collateral. Today, we live in a world that really values environmental justice as a tenet of its policies as it relates to climate. It is through the struggle and efforts of community leaders of the movement, so to speak, it has become a requirement rather than a desire. And so when we look at all forms of government in the United States, whether it is federal, state, or local, we see environmental justice come into the play. We saw this with the federal government establishing an environmental justice White House Advisory Council, departments within agencies, the whole 9 yards. And so we're seeing kind of, it's become more or less the popular, the new kid on the block, more speak. So it's very popular these days in terms of policy, in terms of ensuring that this box or this criteria is addressed. And so for us, in the environmental justice movement, it is finally getting recognition. It is finally being able to convey the concerns and the inequities and the injustices that our communities have faced. with backing to it in terms of decision making, in terms of policy, in terms of shifting the regulations to address these injustices. And so today there is no conversation around climate that does not happen with climate justice groups, communities, leaders, or experts. And unfortunately, an expert in climate justice is an expert in suffering as it relates to climate. And so you find these people with legacy injustices as it pertains to the climate crisis. When you come in and say, I want to plant 300 trees, where are you planting those trees? Who is getting the benefit? Who have you consulted? Are you displacing people? Are you what kind of trees are you planting? Are they native or are they invasive? Are these trees that you're planting going to benefit the community, or are they going to cause more harm to the community? Because this is not a mathematical equation. There is a lot of qualitative data that needs to be taken into account, and that qualitative data comes from community engagement. We're seeing more consideration for these factors. We're seeing more interest from stakeholders to ensure that communities and environmental justice, people who have faced the suffering of the climate crisis, start to be consulted on what they have seen, what they have experienced, and what they think needs to happen. One thing has been proven day in and day out over the course of 80-something years, at least, when climate change became kind of a topic to be thought about. It is that these communities know how to fix these issues. They have the right idea, but they were never listened to, and they were never asked to join. And so today, the tables have turned. Today, we see that it is a requirement in every law and every bill that comes out that relates to the environment to ensure that environmental justice communities are first and foremost at the table and are the ones that are consulted and are the ones that are participating in the transition and in ensuring that we have a future where, as it relates to the climate. All of the laws that have come out, and I could give examples, prioritize these communities. I mentioned earlier the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act mandates 40% of all investment from the transition towards a clean economy go to disadvantaged communities, which are environmental justice communities. That is a mandate. No one can, that is a law.
Sorry, that was federal or
that is state.
State.
That is the state of New York.
That's quite an achievement.
Yeah, and organization like ours, and along with multiple allies, environmental justice organizations across the state, came together to ensure that this happens, to ensure that when we transition, the communities that are flooded, the communities that have asthma, the communities that are living next to these plants, power plants, get to be invested in. Because there's one thing that climate justice and environmental justice communities have been saying for years, but neglected or willfully neglected, is that these climate injustices are by design, and they are not by happenstance, Like it's not something that happened. It is by design. And we can go back to the links to redlining. We can go back to links to where these infrastructures were put, next to whom, who was considered acceptable to be within a sacrifice zone, whose property value mattered the most if you put a power plant there, or if you put a highway there, or if you put an amenity like a park, etc. And so we see that it is by design. There's multiple studies and multiple books on this matter. And so today we see an acknowledgement of that fact. It is no longer up for discussion or dispute. The laws and the government is following suit in terms of ensuring that these communities have a seat at the table and are prioritized. And that is, it's both troubling and a blessing. Troubling because it puts you in a position where you then have to manage this influx of policy making and law that we have to keep we have to keep tracking, because these laws often neglect these communities. And so we always have to keep track of ensuring that there is no loophole that actually creates compounds exacerbates the current situation. And also at the same time, we look at the federal government, for example, with Justice 40 initiative, with the Inflation Reduction Act, with the infrastructure bill that was passed in the last couple of years. This money is coming down like a flood on communities in the name of environmental justice. And what that means is that, one, this money has to be dispersed so quickly. And two, because it has to be dispersed so quickly, we are having to reorganize and reshift the way that we are as organizations, we are as collectives, in order to receive that funding that was promised in our name. And so if we see, for example, the federal government's funding framework, it requires you as an organization to have a partner to fiscally manage this money, which then, of course, reduces the amount of money you get, which then, of course, puts you in a position where you have to negotiate what goes where and who you bring on. And most time it's academic institutions that have the infrastructure in order to absorb, let's say, $10 million that then needs to be redistributed to the community. So that's kind of like the curse element of it, that it comes down too fast and it comes down without foresight.
What are you saying? You're saying that someone like El Puente wouldn't be able to deal with that large amount of money? Is that?
Yeah, so that's so you wouldn't score high. You wouldn't score high because let's say someone like El Puente has a budget below $10 million, and you're asking for $10 million because this is exactly what you were asking for 40 plus years. You wouldn't score high because your budget is lower than the amount that you're requesting, and you could not absorb that money. Right. According to the federal government. And so you then have to look for a partner to absorb that money and then give you some of it.
What you mean by absorb it is have the structure in place to use it?
Have the structure in place to receive it, to manage it, to comply with it, and to distribute it.
Right. And to count it and to...
Exactly. So all of these elements are hurdles for community-based organizations that are on the ground working with communities. Right. But this is the way the federal government set it up. And so you're looking at, billions of dollars being thrown out the federal government in order to ensure that this money goes to communities. But then how is that process happening is still unfolding and is not perfect. So that is like the first kind of like, that's the curse element of it.
So what kind of organization would get that money, let's say,
academic institutions could do that. Academic institutions could absorb the money because there's that kind of a partnership. Pratt, for example, as an academic institution could do that. And
they in turn return to groups like you?
Yeah, but then then you establish a partnership, right? Okay. So like you submit an application with a partner, with a statutory partner. Right. And then you do those things. That is one thing. But also the part of it now, since that federal government has decided that this money is in the name of environmental justice, you see anyone and everyone applying for these grants with no background, with no history, with no community relation whatsoever, claiming that it is environmental justice to access this money.
Right. So they pay someone to do the paperwork and... Because those people are out there, right?
Yeah, not just like the paperwork. They can submit an application, say like we're doing X, Y, and Z within the community. We are whatever. It is not lying, but the fact of environmental justice is that it is a legacy. You are in the community and you've been there for a long time and you've been operating as such.
Whereas it sounds like the application process is more of an opportunistic.
Exactly. And you know, there's multiple different groups that can apply. Of course, non-fiscally sponsored groups cannot apply, which is, I think the federal government could have found a way to kind of administer these grants to particular groups that are not set up to be corporations or entities. The silver lining of it now is that this money is coming to the communities. This money is allocated to communities. And so because we've been doing this for decades, we are organized. And so we can create these cohorts, these coalitions to be able to apply for these. We have very good relationships with particular allies. You know, certain universities are allies, certain universities are not. So we are organized to do that. We are now a huge player in the game, stakeholder in the game, to ensure that, one, this funding gets where it needs to go, but also that we are consulted in any project that needs to happen. And this consultation is not so that, you know, these organizations have a say, some sort of a consideration of the accessibility of community to engage in these processes, to engage in government processes. One thing that the government is now coming to understand is that the ways that they engage community is not accessible to community members. And so they never get the buy-in from community members. And so you see projects that are too alien for the community to accept and thus fail. We're facing that. There's a flooding plan that is being developed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It's been a few good years of kind of engagement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to kind of start to have that conversation of ensuring that the communities are consulted, as opposed to, you know, we're just going to build a seawall to cover Lower Manhattan and the financial district, and that's an okay plan. At the end of the day, like, what is that going to cause? And so now we have conversations with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and we kind of have that kind of a framework. So now we are an important and mandatory stakeholder in the particular climate-related field. And also, you know, we become more important because of the current state of the world. Like, every year we have a so-called 100-year event, and now it's become every year. Whether it is, you know, in New York City, we saw the orange skies, and across all of New York State last year. Every rain event is a flooding event these days. So earthquake, yeah, that was recent, yeah. It's going to become more of an occurrence, and it's something that we need to be dealing with, and there's no time to kind of keep pushing it away. It's both a blessing and a curse, but we are up to the task, and we've been waiting for these moments, and we've been asking for it.
Who is your most unconventional role model?
Any indigenous person.
Do you consider yourself an activist?
Unfortunately.
What other activists, could be through history, would you say was someone that you looked up to?
There's multiple. I will just preface this by saying, you know, when we deal with environmental justice, it is justice of all kinds. It is not just the environment. It is the nexus of all of them as well. I think there's multiple. I can't put a finger on it. There's multiple. Ghassan Kanafani, he was a prominent Palestinian writer and activist back in the 70s. I think the understanding of political foresight and writing and the use of pen, along with resisting, is kind of like the dual nature of the work that we kind of do now today. You know, we organize rallies, but we also sit down and negotiate policy, and that is the reality of the world that we're kind of engaged in and the realm that we're engaged in. It is both at the table, but on the streets at the same time.
The pen and the proverbial sword?
Yes.
How do you choose which issues to pursue?
We listen to the community members. It's the North Star, actually, that we always look up to, whatever the community is facing. And we are a community-based organization. And where we are today is where we started almost 43 years ago. And so our sites are open. We have approximately 7 sites across Brooklyn, where we provide after-school programming, public housing. We exist in 2 schools as well. We have a community school program, and we have our own academy called El Puente High School. And so we listen. We listen to what the community asks us. We listen to what the community is going through, and we translate that to the current policy issues and try to relate that to the environmental harms that are happening. And we don't just focus on environment per se, just climate related. When we talk about sustainability, we talk about sustaining life. And so we focus on ensuring that there is civic engagement in the community. We focus on public safety. We focus on connectivity and internet and digital justice work. We have our own program here as well. And housing, education, these are all the tenets of a thriving community, not a surviving community. We try to shift from surviving to thriving, and that is what sustains the community.
You went to the City College of New York.
Yes.
Yeah, City College of New York, where you earned your Masters of Science. What is your reflection on it?
I loved City College. I am a sucker for public institutions. I believe that it is our right to have a proper education, albeit I wish it was free. But it is. It was affordable to me. I got the privilege of meeting amazing people in my program. And my program was interdisciplinary. So I had the opportunity to focus on the social aspect of sustainability, people, and justice, and not just focus on the scientific element of it, even though I did learn that. And the campus is amazing, is very old. It kind of inspires. But that program and City College per se allowed me to be able to interact with people of all walks of life and to understand what it means to live in the city and also what it means to hope for a better city, because most of the people, I was actually maybe one of 3, quote unquote, students that were coming from abroad. Albeit I lived in the city, so I was a resident of New York at the time. It really changes, and most of my cohort actually works across multiple city agencies, state agencies, etc., because it's a degree that is professional in its capacity and allows folks to go to experience real life situations.
Is there anything that the average person in the street can do sustainability-wise that you would suggest? Like, what impact can they make?
Make your voice heard in any and every opportunity for public engagement. They use that against us. When we don't show up, they think that they have the consensus of the people. And every opportunity we can make our voices heard in the public engagement, it makes a lot of difference. And they don't count for it. And it will surprise them when we do.
We all know what's coming this year, right? Presidential election. Mm-hmm. Is there any hope insofar as the people that are running for president?
I mean, climate justice is very intersectional, so I'd be remiss not to kind of mention. I don't think there is I think it doesn't lie in the presidential hands. The change does not lie in presidential hands. And so there might be inklings of hope, but they are definitely no panacea. In today's world, I see no hope. Perhaps in tomorrow's world, that changes. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know it's not gonna be good. But hopefully, the people can change that.
Rami, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
I hope I didn't talk too much. I tend to do that.
Listen, that's what you want from an interviewee. What do you think of that?
That was spectacular. It's I know it's one interview that you cut into two, but it's two great chunks of oratory, pleasure. Just listening to everything that he had to say. His points were extremely well thought out, well taken. He had to think about stuff. It was really great. I really want to know who that. I couldn't pin him. We'll have to go back and check out who
I'll go back and make notes. But
some of those people references were. Yeah.
One thing we're going to do is put up all the interviews from the shows in some kind of podcast form fairly soon. When I get the time to actually do that, we're going to take a break. I think after next week, right? We've got one more show next week, and then it's what, spring break or some kind of break for the students here?
No, it's summer.
Summer break, is it?
That's it, man.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to trundle along, though, right now, and we're going to go for Sustainability in the News, which Mr. Noble's going to read out, aren't you, after the ident?
All right.
Sustainability in the News.
What a week it's been. We might be closer to changing course on climate change than we realized. Earth is coming out of the hottest year on record. Concentrations of heat-trapping gases in the atmosphere have reached levels not seen in this planet for millions of years. Yet at the same time, the world may be closer than ever to turning a corner on its efforts to corral climate change. Last year, more solar panels were installed in China, the world's largest carbon emitter, than the U.S. has installed in its entire history. More electric vehicles were sold worldwide than ever. And dozens of countries are widening the gap between their economic growth and their greenhouse gas emissions. Climate Analytics, a think tank, published a report last November that raised the intriguing possibility that the worst of our impact on the climate might be behind us. We find that there's a 70% chance that emissions start falling in 2024 if current clean technology growth trends continue, and some of the progress is made to cut non-CO2 emissions. The inertia behind this trend towards lower emissions is so immense that even politics can only slow it down, not stop it. The United States, the world's second largest greenhouse gas emitter, has already climbed down from its peak in 2005 and is descending further. And even under Trump, U.S. emissions are likely to continue to slide downward.
You're joking.
Nope. This is a clear sign that efforts to limit climate change are having a durable impact.
Hang on a minute. How would they come down under Trump?
I'd say there's too much inertia already. Too many programs have been put in place, and he's not going to go tell them to tear down a solar, farm or a wind farm.
Didn't he put someone from the oil companies at the head of the EPA?
Yeah, but it's not like they can't take this stuff back. Once it's out there, it'd be insane. I mean, you have to go. So next story. An El Nino-less summer is coming, but here's what that could mean for the U.S. We all know what El Nino is. It's a natural climate pattern marked by warmer than average ocean temperatures. When the water gets cooler than average, it's La Nina. Either phase can have an effect on global weather around the globe. By June, forecasters expect these ocean temperatures to hover close to normal this year, marking a so-called neutral phase.
What about the cicadas? They're coming too, aren't they?
They are, but that hasn't, I don't know if that has anything to do with one or the other, but right now we're just talking about ocean temperatures. The influence of El Nino and La Nina on the U.S. weather isn't as clear-cut in the summer as it is in the winter, especially during the transition between the two phases. In the summer, the difference in temperature between the two regions isn't as significant, but we can look back at what happened in similar summers to get a glimpse of what could come this summer. So the summer of 2016 was one of the hottest years on record of the lower 48. And the summer of 2020 was similar. La Nina conditions formed midsummer and produced one of the hottest summers on record, as well as one of the most active hurricane seasons on record. So as we have this transition this year, this could mean that we could have an even hotter summer than last year and possibly an even more active hurricane season.
It can't be hot than last summer, can it?
It could. He isn't the only threat to look out for. The strengthening of La Nina conditions, coupled with ocean temperatures, which have been record highs for over a year, could supercharge the Atlantic hurricane season.
It's bloody hot today.
So on the other hand, yeah, it really was. It
Right.
really was. That could be.
It's
It's 83.
83?
Yeah, it's going to drop down tomorrow, but yeah.
Well, it's not even May yet, is it?
Yeah, it's what?
It's not even May yet.
It's not even May yet. No, it's May.
No, it's not.
It's almost May. It's almost May.
May 1st is on Wednesday.
You're right. Yeah, well, May Day. May Day is coming. Okay, on good news, the G7 agrees to shut down coal plants, all coal plants by 2035.
Are they shutting Coldplay down?
Yes, they are. This is big news. The G7 ministers from the Group of Seven Nations, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the United Kingdom, and the United States, with the European Union as a member with special status, have agreed to shut down all their coal plants by 2035. Boo, 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 boo. At the latest,
I read something about that.
Monday, in a climate policy breakthrough that can influence countries around the world. Putting on an end date on coal, the most climate-polluting fossil fuel, has been highly controversial at international climate talks.
Didn't the UK opt out of that one, though?
Not this one. This is just this last weekend. UK is in the middle of it. UK minister actually reported this to the BBC, which came through the CNN.
I thought Rishi Sunak approved one like 2 weeks ago.
This could be the one from 2 weeks ago, but this is the one. But they, anyways. So we have G7 nations come around the table to send the signal to the world that we, the advanced economies of the world, are committed to phasing out coal by the early 2030s. It's quite incredible. Coal might be the dirtiest, but all fossil fuels also need to be ultimately phased out. Almost every country in the world agreed last year to transition away from fossil fuels at COP28 climate talks without an end date. So this is a real big step forward. And for the last thing on the news, our very own Carolyn Schaefer at Pratt, Director of Sustainability Center, she has been named a 2024 Notable Leader in Sustainability by Crain's New York Business, with the publication stating that the 56 honorees on Crain's Notable Leaders in Sustainability list are redefining corporate commitment by overseeing decarbonization policy, designing environmentally conscious housing, heading sustainability investing, and more. Congratulations, Carolyn. We're glad to be working with you here.
What is the... Crain's is the business magazine, right?
Full-on business. Yeah.
They have a sustainability award?
Yeah. When you find business, especially financially focused businesses, get interested in sustainability, it's time to listen because they will follow the money. And if the money's there, then they're going to be talking about it.
What are the awards called? The Crain's?
Notable Leader in Sustainability Award. What is it, like the Oscars?
Yeah, like
the paper crane. The origami paper crane.
Wasn't it funny when we were interviewing Luca from
the Maasai?
Kampiakansi.
Kampiakansi.
That he said that there was awards for
eco
held every year.
Man, they have an award. I actually won the award for best brochure in North America once.
Really?
Yeah, best like tourist brochure in North America. They have them for everything. There's an award for everything, man.
Really?
I'm sure there's an award for you.
I won an award for doing this show, for editing the show and doing all the interviews and editing
least listened to college radio show in history. I'm sure you'd get the best one. That'd be solid platinum.
Tomorrow, when you're giving out the ice cream here. For what award is that you're giving out the ice cream tomorrow?
We're giving out ice cream tomorrow. We're going to have at the Pratt Cannon. We're going to have for people interested in sustainability minor at Pratt Institute. Please come on down. We'll be scooping ice cream and serving pizza and asking people to do their exit surveys for the semester who can. But come on down and just hang out and talk to all the teachers who are there about the sustainability minor and what's going on with that.
You know how I'm such a simple man, right?
Very.
So my award will be that Lady Moo Moo cone that you're going to give me tomorrow.
You got it, right? Man. Yeah.
Mr. Lipschitz. Is it Mr. Lip? No, am I going to get that wrong? Lipschitz. Right?
Steve
Lipschitz. Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve is the
Lipkin.
Lady Moo Moo guy. Yeah. For any of you that don't know, Lady Moo Moo is located. Where is it located?
It's on Bainbridge and Howard. Howard and Bainbridge. Yeah.
It's a great spot to bring your kids or bring yourself. For really good ice, like amazing ice cream.
They're an ice cream factory, and their main business is providing ice cream for the restaurants around the city. So you've probably eaten their ice cream and not known it.
Right.
But on the side, they have a little ice cream, like a little window, and people can get cones. And they're very generous for very, very tiny amounts of money, less than Mr. Stofty. Honest to goodness.
We should get in contact with Steve and just interview him, not because of the sustainability thing, but just because we like ice cream.
But he does. That's true. Just to get free ice cream.
So tomorrow, if any of you want to come down for free ice cream, come to the entrance at Pratt, where you won't be let in, and we won't come and get you.
By the way,
but I will get my award.
It's pizza, and then I'm bringing ice cream. I mean, there will be a fair amount of ice cream, but it's pizza first and ice cream. It's not an ice cream. You are so focused on the ice cream.
I want an award. You know what we're going to call the award? We're going to call it the
Mickey?
The Moo-Moos.
The Moo-Moos? I thought they called them the Mickeys. The Mick O'Connor Awards.
All right, we're going to move on to the next segment, which is the only reason we're doing this is because I did an ident for it during the week and I just want to play it. All
okay,
right, so
here we go.
Here we go.
Entertain me.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I don't know why it gives me such pleasure, those things, you know. So this week, well, this past week, I watched with the missus, half at the missus anyway, I watched Baby Reindeer.
Baby Reindeer.
Yeah, which is a Netflix thing about a stand-up comic in England who's actually kind of all over the papers now in England because he's a stand-up comic, but he got chased by a stalker up in Edinburgh when he was doing the.
This is a real story?
Fringe. Yeah, that's a real story. So he's a stand-up comic, and obviously, I guess the stand-up comedy wasn't doing that great for him, and he took up this story about the stalker who got very, very serious. And this is actually not a very funny. I didn't find it funny anyway. It's not a very funny series, but it's a very watchable series because it's so kind of weird and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into any of the scenes that are in it and that, but it's not. You know, don't let the kids watch it for God's sake. But it's very unnerving. It's obviously there's no comedy whatsoever. I couldn't see any in it anyway. But it is a definite kind of like one of those watches where you want to keep watching and kind of find out what happens. But anyway, the real life story has now spilled over into the papers, and you can read all that stuff yourselves. But it's well worth a watch. I think it's 6 1-hour parts on Netflix. All right. So that's that, and we're getting close to the end, aren't we?
We are.
4 minutes left.
I just have one question for you. Why did the guy start stalking him?
It was a woman.
Why did the woman start stalking him?
Because he bought her a cup of tea when he was a bartender, and it kind of started from that. It's actually a two-ended story. It's a story about the stalker, but it's also a story about his vulnerability.
Gotcha.
I don't want to give any more away than that. But definitely watch it if you've got 6 hours of your life to kind of get into it.
Got plenty of 6 hours to kill.
Yeah. So that's that. We are going to do a show next week, and we're going to have Phil Murray, who is the communications director of Group Boss, which is a sustainability foundation, and I guess I want to say resort.
Kind of another eco resort. Stamina became this huge foundation, though. It does all these touches all these.
It's huge. It does sponsorships with the Premier League. It has some like big time players. They've got incredible facilities. They have a volunteer program. They have several different foundational programs. They do a lot of education for local people in South Africa, in the area of South Africa that they're at. And we'll go in much more detail with Phil. It's actually Philippa, but she'd like to be called Phil Murray, who I had a long conversation with a couple of weeks ago at about 6-7 o'clock in the morning over the old internet thingamajiggy. So we're getting to the end of the show. We've got 2 minutes left. What did you learn this week?
I learned that there's a version of stand-up comedy in Japan that dates back to the 1300s.
And it's called?
I can't remember what it's called.
It's called, I can't remember what it's called.
That's probably what it's called. I don't know why it's called that. I saw a great show myself called Rhys Darby, the guy who plays Maury on Flight of the Conchords in Japan. And I suggest people watch that. It's a really good about entertainment and comedy and how it works in Japan. And also little bits of cultural pepperings about differences there. And it's a really fun show to watch.
Great. So I think that was a good show, wasn't it?
For a wrap?
Oh, God, I think it's time for a wrap.
Yeah,
I
had a good one today.
We're going to go and have a pint.
Thank you.
Where are we going to have a pint?
You want to see? We go back to our old haunt and see if everything's okay. I don't think they're playing any.
There's no playoffs tonight, is there?
No playoffs tonight.
All right. It's a wrap.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
everybody
you
for not listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap.